you are probably already aware that communicating professionally isn't just limited to simple text-based documents. If you send an email, you might reference a data point in an attached chart. If you write a longer report, you will probably include research, data, and other graphics. The reason is simple. Some audiences will only trust what you tell them if you can back it up with hard research and data. Importantly, however, not a lot of readers are truly data literate. This means that they probably don't want to sort through a spreadsheet filled with numbers and figures. Instead, they want someone to present major findings to them in a visually compelling and engaging way. Enter the data visualization. A data visualization is any kind of graphic that communicates research, usually quantitative research. Quantitative research is a fancy way of saying that someone counted something. For example, a bar graph comparing sales of one product to another at a particular company is a data visualization. The bars each represent a numerical figure. Even though it's simple to do, someone had to conduct quantitative research, count something, to arrive at these figures, and then someone had to produce the graph in such a way that it communicates a difference between data points. Before we discuss data visualizations any further, I want you to take a moment to focus on that last point. As a professional and technical communicator, part of your job is to design data visualizations in such a way that they make an argument. Even though you are working with data or numbers, you are still the one presenting information for a persuasive purpose. Let's look at an example. Here's that simple bar graph I was just talking about a minute ago. Right now, we can see that the graph has two bars that represent red stapler sales and black stapler sales. It's clear that the bars are slightly different in size. The one thing missing from this graph is a descriptive title. The title of your graph is extremely significant because it's one of the first places where you make an argument about the data you've selected to represent. So, for this graph, I could use a title like Red Staplers Outsell Black, and it would be factually correct. My argument is that red staplers are more popular. What if I use the title Black Staplers Can't Compete with Red Stapler Sales? The argument is roughly the same, but this time I'm focused on the black stapler sales. This may not seem like a huge difference, but the argument could be used against black staplers, whereas the first argument can be used in support of red staplers. Okay, one more. What if I title the graph Red and Black Stapler Sales Nearly Even? Suddenly, this is a totally different argument, one where I suggest the difference in sales between the two products is insignificant, even though the bars might have me think otherwise. This is just one small demonstration of the power you have as a professional and technical communicator. The data doesn't change, but you do get to decide how to present it, what to include, what to exclude, where to focus your audience's attention, and how to best present your information. Take, for example, the two tables below. One was broadcast on American news networks during the 2016 Olympics to report how well the USA was doing in the overall medal count. The other was broadcast all over China to demonstrate how many more gold medals China was winning compared to other countries. The data is the same, but the simple change in how it is organized makes a big difference in how it's understood by your reader. Data visualizations come in all shapes and sizes for a variety of different arguments. Three common categories you should understand are charts, graphs, and tables. Let's start with a table. This one is barely visualized at all. Mostly, a table is a way of organizing a small amount of raw data for your audience to consider. You could use a table to represent the average climate highs and lows by month in Tampa, for example. This table is fairly straightforward, with 12 predictable rows, one for each month, and 2 to 3 numbers following each. This is pretty much the maximum amount of raw data you'd ever want to present to a non-expert audience. Why? First, because any more than this will become overwhelming, even if you think it's neatly organized. Second, And perhaps more importantly, the more information you share this way, the more room you give your audience for interpretation. This means that you are giving up control over what argument you are trying to make. One person might look at your table and think about how hot it is on average in Tampa Bay, whereas another might look at it and think about how it would be a great place to visit during the winter months. Sometimes presenting a table is a good way to start a conversation about some specific figures, but charts and graphs allow you to focus more closely on particular trends. A chart is simply a way of visualizing multiple parts of one whole. For example, let's say we wanted to appeal to the snowbirds and show off the portion of months where the average temperature won't drop below 60 degrees Fahrenheit. You could make a simple pie chart with two colors. One group represents the 8 months that stay the warmest, and one group represents the 4 months that drop below 60 on average. What you've done is represented the one calendar year in two parts, warm months and cold months. If you compare two or more variables as different entities instead of part of one whole, you will need to design a graph. For example, you could use a double bar graph to compare the hottest month, August, with the coldest month, January. Even though August and January are technically part of one whole, the calendar year, in this graph they are being compared as distinct months. There are plenty of other types of data visualizations, but most are some combination of chart, graph, or table. For more ideas about different kinds of visualizations, consult the periodic table of visualizations linked in the notes below. When creating data visualizations, keep these genre tips in mind. Use the right visualization to communicate the right relationship. If you want to compare a few raw numbers side by side, go for a table. If you have percentages or parts of a whole to show, use a chart. If you are comparing two or more elements, go for a graph. Give it a title. The title is a great place to showcase your argument or interpretation of the data. Label it with a figure number. For easier reference in a longer document, it's important to label your visualizations with short figure numbers, figure 1, figure 2, etc., etc. Make sure to label both the X and Y axis. The X axis runs horizontally, and the Y axis runs vertically. Never assume your reader knows what each one of these represents. Make sure the colors you use are clearly distinguishable. Try to use preset color palettes, or make sure you are selecting colors or textures that are clearly different from one another. Color can be a useful way of presenting arguments. Notice above how my visuals about climate featured red and blue. Notice how my stapler visualizations featured red and black. Make sure all fonts are legible. If the labels are too small, someone might skip right past your visual argument. Include a legend so your visualization can be read by anyone. Finally, don't include too many data points. If you try to represent too much data visually, you will fail to make a clear impression on your audience. It's better to use multiple simple visualizations to make a full argument. Of course, creating good data visualizations is only half the battle. You must write about these visualizations as well and describe how they function together as a cohesive unit to produce an argument. Truly, this structure is no different than how you would use any other type of evidence in your writing. For example, let's consider the 3 weather visualizations I featured in this video. I first must make a claim. Tampa Bay is a lovely place to live. I support my claim with evidence by showing Figure 1, 10-year temperature averages. After presenting my evidence, the table, I must explain it for my audience. I might say something like, this table shows that no average temperature is either excessively hot or extremely cold. Finally, I connect that explanation to my original claim. Because the temperature is generally within these parameters, many people choose to live in Tampa Bay based on climate. What I just did was simply make a claim introduce evidence to support my claim, explain what my evidence means, and connect this data to my original claim. If I were constructing a longer visual report, I would repeat this process with more claims and evidence. I could continue by saying that there is a whole population of people, known as snowbirds, who live in Tampa Bay part-time because of the pleasant weather in colder months. Figure 2, Tampa is for snowbirds, would help me make this point by showing that Tampa boasts hot months for over 2/3 of the year. Finally, I might make the claim that some people prefer to feel the seasons changing and even they can enjoy the climate of Tampa. Figure 3, difference between the hottest and coldest month, helps me demonstrate that Tampa does have a noticeable fluctuation in temperature between August and January for those potential populations who desire that. Finally, I explain how all of my data points together make a case for why Tampa is a lovely place to live. This process is no different than using quotes from scholarly sources. You have an idea that you express as a claim, you back up your claim with evidence, you explain why that evidence is significant, and then you connect its significance back to the original claim. Finally, you explain how all of the evidence works together to create a sound argument. For more information on how to evaluate data visualizations, be sure to tune in to the next video where I look at some visual reports specifically and give advice on how they might be improved.